The views, opinions, and advice expressed in this podcast are solely those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of Pattison Media or the sponsors of this program.
Breathe out. 2, 3, 4.
Wellness is...
Quickies are important. I often say to women who have low sexual desire, who are in a sexless marriage, it's really going to take about 2 minutes, honestly.
Another thing that we look at is avoidance of stimuli, things that remind them of the trauma. Someone going to the dentist, they might have had trauma, so now they want to avoid it.
My dad was a better match, and this brought us even closer. He's a superhuman, so he had the chance to save my life, even if it meant risking his. He was more than happy to.
Sometimes I really want to talk about it. Please listen while I spew my venom about this situation. And sometimes I'm just done, and I just don't want to talk about it.
This is proof. This is evidence that there is a part of us that is constantly just simply aware of what is going on in our thoughts, feelings, and bodies. And that part is your soul.
Welcome to Everything Lifestyle, your podcast for practical advice about how to attain better physical and mental well-being so that instead of just surviving, you're thriving. Everything Lifestyle is powered by Pattison Media. In this series, we'll share a health journey, explore the trends, and talk to the experts who will help you live your best life. And we'll have fun doing it. In this episode, let's talk about sex, baby. Understanding PTSD. And we actually grieve change. We'll talk about that with Life Unlimited Stephanie Staples, and how a father saved a daughter and her struggle with kidney disease. I'm Linda Freeman. Come join the journey of Everything Lifestyle.
How to choose wellness.
Yes! 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 Oh! 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 Oh, God. Oh.
I'll have what she's having.
Sexual health plays a big role in overall well-being and quality of life for both men and women. Now, and if you search online, you'll find plenty of claims about the benefits of sex. You'll maybe read things like reducing anxiety, boosting happiness, strengthening the immune system, and I even read lowering the risk of prostate cancer. Now, it's also said that sex and orgasm release feel-good chemicals, helping us bond with partners, improve self-worth, and enhance relationships. And some even suggest that frequent sex can lead to a higher quality of life and maybe even a longer lifespan. But how much of this is actually true? To get some expert insight, we turn to Maureen McGrath, registered nurse, sexual health educator, and host of Nurse Maureen's Health Show podcast. With years of clinical practice in North Vancouver and a 14-year run in radio, she's the perfect person to help us separate fact from fiction. Hello, Maureen.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
I am great. It is such an honor to have you here to talk about this big topic of sex.
It's a huge subject indeed. It's one of my favorite subjects, of course.
Which is so good because people just tend to shy away from this still to this day, right? It's like, oh, we don't talk about sex. I do want to talk about why sex is important, including the health benefits. What can you say to that to give us just a little bit of perspective and insight?
Well, overall, sex is very good for us from an emotional standpoint, psychological, relationship. And yes, indeed, it can reduce the risk of cancer. And we find the evidence from a Harvard University study of about 32,000 men that found that men who masturbated to ejaculation, let's get right started with it. Love it. Let's go for it. About 21 times a month, it was actually associated with a 39% reduction in prostate cancer later in life. Sex is very important, and you're right, we don't talk about it because it's still stigmatized in our society, in our very parochial, patriarchal society. So we don't discuss it. But I have noticed an upswing in healthcare professionals wanting to learn more about it. In fact, so I've given about 4 talks to healthcare professionals this week alone. And so I'm getting more requests, and patients are coming in because things that happen as people age, like erectile dysfunction or vaginal dryness, can lead to painful sex. That can actually put an end to a sex life. We have so many myths to dispel as well, like around perimenopause and menopause, where people think that sex stops. And another thing I think is that people believe there's no help for them. And it can actually lead to a shorter life and early death for people who are in a relationship, in a committed marriage, a committed relationship or partnership, and they're not having sex. It can actually lead to early death. We don't talk about it. People are embarrassed. They're ashamed about it, or people want the quick fixes around it. And education is so important, especially around things like low desire and anorgasmia or erectile dysfunction. You know, explaining issues and explaining medications and explaining the treatments are so important. And you're right, it's so much more of a satisfying relationship when you have sexually satisfying events. Now, that's a clinical research term, but it's important that we have SSEs in our lives.
That's going to be my new thing. SSEs. I love it. Sexually satisfying events. Well put.
And it can bring us closer to our partners, and it can actually promote intimacy in the relationship. And it's related to emotional well-being as well. You know, sex and finances are two of the top reasons for divorce in a relationship. And so it's such an important subject that we must educate our healthcare providers about it and must educate people so that people are comfortable talking about it. And I see that in my clinical practice. Patients will come in and I'll have to finish their sentences because they're so embarrassed to talk about it.
I wanted to go back because you talked about the study with men and orgasm, and I think that it's not enough is talked about women and orgasm and the health benefits there are for women. And I think that that's something that women really need to understand. It's got to be beneficial for women as well.
And it is indeed. More men masturbate than women, but women do masturbate. Newsflash.
We just don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it. It's a big shame. But many women are masturbating, you know, self-stimulation or utilizing sex toys. One of my favorite sex toys, if not my favorite sex toy, is the womanizer. In part because it's educational and it's also a great device. It's a clitoral stimulation device, and 70% of women require clitoral stimulation in order to experience an orgasm. And so this is a great device. I often recommend it in my practice for women who have primary anorgasmia. So in other words, they have never experienced an orgasm. Or oftentimes as women age, it takes them a little bit longer to experience orgasm, and then that impacts the intimate moments. So the womanizer has about 10 different settings on it, and it actually can advance your experience from 15 minutes down to 5, or maybe 5 minutes down to 1, or like a rocket ship.
I love it. So write it down, women. Womanizer. This is great.
Fantastic device. It's available on my website.
I think one of the biggest changes, the big topic right now, of course, is all around menopause for women, perimenopause, all of these things, and the changes that we have in our bodies when this happens. And a big part of this is the dryness, the Sahara Desert down under, the things that can happen. Not to mention the lack of sleep, the hot flashes, all of these things can put a halt on your sex life. And I wanted to really talk about that, the steps they might be able to take, Maureen, to get through that so that they don't lose that intimacy with their partner.
Women want the quick fix, and lately they all want testosterone for their low libido. But I would say that there are better treatments than testosterone for your low libido. You mentioned the dryness. That can often be something that's very confusing for women. All of a sudden they're lubricated, and then it can happen overnight, or it can happen over a period of time where they get vaginal dryness, and that can lead to painful sex, which is dyspareunia. Can also lead, of course, to low sexual desire because nobody wants to have sex when it hurts. So neither partner wants to do that. So they don't realize there's treatments. The first line of treatment is a lubricant during intimacy, as long as you just have vaginal dryness. Then the second is personal moisturizer. I often say it's just as important to moisturize the vagina as it is the face. And in fact, it works better on the vagina. And so that's a suppository or a gel that's inserted 2 or 3 times a week, and that keeps the vaginal tissues healthy.
I think too, then it's the mental piece of it. That women are uncomfortable because it is painful, or they've gained weight and they don't feel good about themselves. And I think those can be barriers to being comfortable with that intimacy with their partner. I think often we put more pressure on ourselves than our partner. They're like, oh, I think you're still great. Like, it's no problem. So What can we do about those things?
Absolutely. Just have sex with me. I really don't care that you have
It's okay. I still think you're hot.
Exactly. Well, turn the lights out. Who cares? And, that's the most common sex position is the doggy position. Really setting the mood there. Yeah, that's right. No candles, not a flicker of light. No. None of us are perfect. And when you feel good about your body and when you feel good about your intimate life, it makes you feel better about your own self and your self-esteem and your sexual self-esteem, which is very important as well.
So it's all of that together that can then make you feel more confident, happier, and, wanting to kind of have a little more fun.
We often tell people to schedule sex because women are exhausted at the end of the day, and that can be the worst time to have sex. Have it on a Saturday afternoon or have it right after work. Scheduling sex might sound clinical as well, but it's not. We schedule everything else in our lives.
Talk a little bit about the 5-minute compared to the long half-hour, whatever plus it could possibly be. Do we need a balance of that?
Quickies are important and an important aspect of the sexual repertoire. They have their place for sure. And then longer lovemaking sessions, it can also be a nice mix. But I often say to women who have low sexual desire, who are in a sexless marriage, it's really going to take about 2 minutes, honestly. That's all the time that you need, because that's approximately the time it's going to take for your male partner, if you're in a heterosexual relationship.
And just creating that space, as you said, even if it's scheduled and knowing can be that quickie. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out process.
I think people have been experiencing this in secret and in shame. And when they should look at it like shampoo. It's an everyday common occurrence. For me, anyway. I have to wash my hair every day. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, at least 2-3 times a week is good. Like, we all got to start somewhere. Maybe work up to the daily shampoo.
Gets you out of that sexless marriage category. So go for it.
Exactly.
Sex is to be enjoyed, much like life. It's not to be endured, it's to be enjoyed. You deserve a good sex life. And oftentimes women will get to a stage and they'll think, I haven't really enjoyed sex my entire life. It's time that I woke up and started to. And, and no shame around it, and just enjoy it. It's a gift you give to yourself. And sometimes it's just with yourself, and that's fine too. As we started
Exactly. Where can people find you if they want to connect or want to listen to your podcast?
They can go to my website, maureenmcgrath.com, or Apple, Spotify.
Anywhere you listen.
Yeah, Nurse Maureen's Health Show. And they can always email me, nursetalk@hotmail.com directly.
That's wonderful. Thank you. It was a real joy. You are awesome. Thanks, Maureen.
You're welcome. You're awesome as well. Thank you so much.
Coming up, we talk about how we grieve change with Life Unlimited, Stephanie Staples.
Health Tag.
PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Around 70% of people globally will experience a potentially traumatic event during their lifetime, but less than 6% will go on to develop PTSD. Now, up to 40% of people with PTSD recover within 1 year. So what is it? How does it differ from anxiety, and how do you get help? To get some answers, our showrunner Karen Habashi connected with clinical psychologist Dr. Mina Gurgis. Here's their conversation.
Hello, Mina, and welcome to our Everything Lifestyle podcast. I want to discuss with you the difference between anxiety and PTSD.
Anxiety is just an emotion that everyone throughout as humans, whether you are Korean, Japanese, Egyptian, Caucasian, right? All of us experience anxiety. It's a normal human emotion. So there's a lot of environmental factors that contribute to anxiety. For example, someone who is afraid of heights and they need to go on an airplane, that environmental factor, getting on an airplane, will cause them this anxiety. Someone who is talking in front of a large group of people, they will experience anxiety. Now, that being said, it's our perception that makes a difference. Because some other people are in the same situation, the same environment, and they're not anxious. So what makes a difference is their perception of how this event is affecting them. So anxiety is very directly related to the thoughts that a person gets during that time.
Let's talk about what's PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, let's break it down. It's a stress disorder that is after a traumatic event, right? Post-traumatic stress, okay. The essential part here is that the individual experiences extreme stress, severe forms of anxiety, worry, or even dread due to the trauma that they went through. So we see a lot of soldiers that experienced war, people who experienced different forms of traumatic medical conditions. For example, some people who experienced near death of, let's say, cancer, and then they have this trauma because of what they went through, and then that causes them symptoms. So let's go over some of the symptoms. The person have to have direct experience of the event themselves, or they have experienced the event through someone else. Second thing that we're looking at is the presence of one or more intrusive symptoms associated with the trauma. The person will have distressing memories of it. Sometimes the person is driving and the memory comes and they become dissociated, like they're not even aware of the environment. Nightmares. The person will wake up from sleep. They were screaming. Flashbacks. The person is working and then they have a flashback of the explosion or the event itself. So a flashback of the event. Also physical reactions of the event. For example, the person is experiencing pain, anything in their body that would kind of remind them of the situation. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we look at is avoidance of stimuli, things that remind them of the trauma. Someone going to the dentist, they might have had trauma, so now they want to avoid it. We look at inability to remember important aspects of the trauma. Sometimes in the therapy session, the person is actually not able to recall what happened to them because they repressed the memory. It caused them so much pain that they repressed it. They don't want to talk about it, or they can't even remember what happened.
Yeah.
Blaming themselves for the trauma. It was my fault that I got raped or I got abused. Negative emotions such as fear, horror, anger, guilt, and shame, diminished interest in activities. For someone to get a diagnosis of PTSD, they might have maybe 5 of the 7. But you have to have significant trauma in your life. Yes, this person has a diagnosable disorder, PTSD, and then we can write that in the medical chart.
I see, especially on social media, a lot of people have been self-diagnosing themselves and not even going to therapy. I have friends who were saying, oh, I have severe anxiety. And I say, how did you diagnose yourself? I read it, or I saw someone speaking about it and I checked all the boxes.
I mean, there could be so many different reasons why someone decides not to go and see a therapist. It could be cultural. It could be they already have a thought that they're not going to be able to help me. Or maybe they went to a therapist before and they were not very helpful. Maybe it's not severe enough that it's impacting their life. Also, in any mental health diagnosis, the symptoms have to be severe enough that it's affecting their life in a manner that is actually not pleasant.
There's still a lot of stigma, and I wish one day we shatter it, because there are so many people with undiagnosed issues, and it impacts their children, their partners, their lives. And it could be a simple talk session, not even medication, that can fix it. A lot of things that hinders a person from stepping into the office.
Parents have a huge role to parent their kids the right way and educate them and guide them and help them to express their emotions and talk about their feelings.
Thank you so much, Mina.
You can follow Dr. Mina at Flow Wellness Hub or visit the Emotional Wellness Center for Skin Disorders.com. Coming up later, where are your thoughts? The art of going within.
Life Unlocked.
Wow, the liver really is the ultimate multitasker, isn't it? It's basically the superhero of your body. Heart biohazard disposal unit, heart nutrient factory, and 100% working overtime. And yet we rarely give it the love it deserves. We don't even think about our livers until something goes wrong. But liver health is crucial. Cirrhosis and fatty liver disease are like sneaky villains in your favorite superhero movie. They can creep up if we're not paying attention. Things like alcohol, toxins from pesticides, and unregulated medications can all put your liver through the ringer. Some tips are obvious. Go easy on the booze. But did you know that washing your produce is also a big win for your liver? Yep, scrubbing those fruits and veggies means fewer toxins making their way into your system. And of course, exercise and a healthy diet are key, especially when it comes to managing weight. Obesity is like a double agent. It doesn't just affect your waistline, it can put you at risk for fatty liver disease too. But let's get back to just how much this absolute legend of an organ does for you. Here's a highlight reel of the liver's greatest hits. Bile production. Your liver makes bile, which helps break down fats and flush out waste. It's basically running quality control for your digestive system. Protein production. The liver is a full-time protein factory, cranking out essential proteins that keep your blood plasma doing its thing. Cholesterol and fat transport. Now, not all cholesterol is bad. Your liver makes it and sends fats to where they need to go, like a well-organized shipping center. Glucose management. Too much sugar in your blood? The liver stores it as glycogen. Need energy? It converts it back. It's like your body's personal savings account for fuel. Iron storage. The liver hoards iron from broken down red blood cells and saves it for a rainy day. Smart, right? Blood cleansing. The liver filters out drugs, toxins, and other nasties from your bloodstream. If it slacks off, bilirubin builds up, and suddenly you're looking like a minion. Hello, jaundice. And when it's done processing everything, the liver makes sure the waste gets the boot, either through bile or through the blood, where it gets filtered out of the kidneys and flushed away. The liver is a total MVP working behind the scenes, keeping you alive and asking for literally nothing in return. Kind of makes you want to treat it better, right? Coming up on Everything Lifestyle, grieving change and how to manage with Life Unlimited, Stephanie Staples.
Being real.
An estimated 35.5 million Americans have kidney disease, and 1 in 10 Canadians. A shocking 9 out of 10 people with kidney disease are unaware they have it. Every March, special campaigns come out to raise awareness around kidney health, kidney disease prevention, and early diagnosis of kidney disease. So I reached out to a friend of mine. She's a marketing specialist for athletes, active in her local community of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and has recently started a charity event called the Way Back Lunch and Benefit for St. Joe's Hospital Kidney Transplant Clinic. This is Savarina's story. This is Being Real.
I'm Savarina Scazzari. I am a recent kidney transplant recipient. My mom found out when she was expecting me, my kidneys weren't fully developed in the womb. So they knew that there could be complications. And then I almost died when she gave birth to me. And that's when I became a patient at McMaster. They took care of me for 18 years, and we weren't really sure if I'd see my 5th birthday or I would see my 10th birthday. But it kept pushing and fighting. My parents gave me a very normal childhood, which was great. Both of my parents were a match, and it ended up being that my dad was a better match. We've always been very close. He's my best friend, my rock. We watch sports together. And we just really bonded beforehand, and then this brought us even closer now that I have a piece of him inside me. He's a superhuman, so if he had the chance to save my life, even if it meant risking his, he was more than happy to. When I woke up from surgery, everybody was panicking, running around me, and I was really scared because no one was familiar to me. My doctor, I've never seen him so concerned. And then I'm hearing whispers about me having to go back into the operating room. And then finally I asked what's happening. And they said that my dad had a really large kidney and I'm very petite. So they had issues like fitting it. They had to cut me literally in half, reflected into my stomach, and it fit just perfectly. But it was putting pressure on my vessels, so they weren't sure if it would affect my heart. So that led to 24/7 care. I lost a lot of blood, so I needed 5 blood transfusions. And I ended up there for 10 days. Usually you're out of there within 3 days. And that was really tough also because there was a COVID outbreak on my floor, so I couldn't have any visitors. was literally alone, and my mental health deteriorated more and more every day. I didn't sleep for 6 days. All I felt was anger, frustration, the sound of the machines beeping. I can still hear them some nights, and there's a lot of trauma from that time in the hospital. Because I think I was in denial, and I was also mourning myself while I was going through all of this. I didn't wake up the same person that I was before the surgery. The meds altered my personality and just perspective on life overall. Also experienced rejection. And I was really struggling mentally. That will to fight just wasn't there. There were multiple times where I just wanted to end my life. And at that point, I talked to my dad, and he said, you know what? Why don't you see if there's someone you can speak to? No, there wasn't anybody available at the hospital or in the clinic. And that's what kind of inspired me to raise money to provide someone for not only myself, but for future patients. What a lot of people don't know is that a transplanted kidney only lasts about 15 to 20 years. So I'll need about 2 or 3 transplants in my lifetime, which is insane to think about since I'm still recovering from the first one mentally. And then that really inspires me to not only do something for our Hamilton community, but also all over North America. Give yourself grace every day. There's going to be wins and there's going to be losses. And it's a really big roller coaster. It's not a stable or steady line. You're going to be really high and really low. And you just have to be patient with the process, which I still struggle with. So I understand that's hard to take, but I also ask for help if you are struggling. I think the most important thing that you can do is get help before the transplant, because that transition can be a lot. You're grieving yourself beforehand, and then afterwards, the loss really hits, and you have to adapt to this new life where you feel like an imposter in your own body. So it's nice to have somebody on the outside of your friends and family while they're going through their own feelings to guide you in the right way and help them. There's a lack for mental health support in the hospitals all across the board, but especially for kidney transplant recipients. And from pre-transplant life to after, there's a lot of side effects from the medications. There's financial burdens. Medication can cost up to $24,000 a year. And if you don't have insurance, you're struggling to find work throughout recovery. It's a really tough battle, and people just read stories like myself. You hear, I had a kidney transplant, my life was horrible, I woke up, lived happily ever after, but they don't talk about the in-between and the recovery period. So it's very important to me to be completely honest about the journey, sharing the good, the bad, the ugly, because I want future patients to have a resource that's truly honest.
Thank you for sharing your story, Savarina. You can connect with Savarina directly on Instagram at Savarina Scazzari, or check out Sunday Morning Fever fundraiser at stjoesfoundation.ca. That's STJOES foundation.ca.
Life Unlimited with Stephanie Staples.
We all have to deal with change in our lives, and I think especially when we lose a job, that this can really have a profound effect on our sense of well-being or how we think about ourselves and that worker identity. And as a matter of fact, Kubler-Ross is a Swiss-American psychiatrist, and she studied death and experiences of dying and identified the 5 stages of grief and loss, and also showed that the emotional journey was the same for everyone going through this grieving and loss stage. And now they're saying that the loss of work and employment has been seen to follow the same pattern of grief. And I thought this was fascinating, and the effect that this can have on our wellness. And I wanted to tackle managing the grief and the change. So of course I had to bring in the wonderful motivational speaker, Stephanie Staples, to talk about this and bring your perspective. Hey, Steph, how you doing?
Hello, Linda. All is well. And it is interesting, right? It kind of makes sense because a loss of the job or a divorce or a death, there's many, many similarities in there. So we're lucky that we have this little model that we can follow that maybe makes us feel it's not just us. We're not losing it. It's like, okay, this is normal. And something about just knowing that we're in that normal realm makes us feel a little bit better.
It's interesting because if you haven't ever experienced losing a job, especially I think one that you really love, you love the work you do and the people that you work with. And I think when we have major change in our lives, that this is something that we need to be aware of that we're potentially going to go through.
It's not a matter of if, right? It's just a matter of when. We're all going to go through some sort of unwanted, unwelcome change. It may be welcome later when you might be, oh, thank goodness that happened. And many things that we come to in our lives, we're like, oh my gosh, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have got to this. But right when you're in the middle of it, that doesn't really help. We're sad, and especially if we didn't have much choice in the matter. And one of my friends actually went to nursing school with her, and she just retired. So she didn't lose her job. She chose to leave her job. And she is going through this right now. She says, this has been my identity for 40 years. That's a real loss, whether you choose it or not. So take it to the next level. If you didn't choose it and you have all that worry and wonder and fear, of course you're going to be a little out of sorts, right?
Can you kind of walk us through and give us any advice or perspective when you have major change or loss in your life?
Well, I think first of all, knowing that it's okay. It's okay to mourn this. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay. Like, none of these feelings are bad. It's what we do with them that could not be too positive, but acknowledging none of these feelings are bad. They're very normal and it's okay. And many people have gone through it and you will go through it too. As well, chances are very good if you're listening to this, you've not got to this stage in your life without already having gone through this probably numerous times.
Sure.
And you've come out okay, you've done fine, you're going to do fine again, having that confidence that this is going to pass. A lot of us, we just need a little bit of time. And here's a novel idea. How about we give ourselves a little bit of grace? We can kind of narrow it down to one feeling kind of at a time. Okay, what predominantly right now is kind of going on in my body? What's taking up a lot of space in my heart, in my head? Pick that one feeling. It's much more manageable. And then we can think about, okay, how do we want to move on from this feeling? Maybe write about it, maybe talk it out. And then when we're ready, we're going to think, okay, what 1, 2, 3 things might help me feel a little bit better when I'm in this stage of sadness or depression or anger or whatever. And it might be things that might work to help move us on.
And this is what I love in the conversations that we have. As you just said, just that one nugget there of allow yourself that grace period. Be a little bit easier on yourself because this can be really hard. Everyone around you too wants to say, it's going to be okay. You're great. Don't worry about it. You're going to land on your feet, blah. And they go on and on and on. You're like, yeah, thanks people. But you know what? I just want to be sad right now. I'm really sad that this has happened to me. So could you just let me be sad for a time and then I'll figure things out? I don't need you all telling me that, yes, it's going to be okay.
Yes. So that's a super good point. Most people want to help us, right?
Yeah.
And I know when I've gone through stuff like this too, sometimes I really want to talk about it. Please listen while I spew my venom about this situation. And sometimes I'm just done. I'm done talking about it because every time I talk about it, it brings up all that anger and da-da-da-da. And I just don't want to talk about it. But as a friend who likes to be a very good friend, I can't read your mind, Linda. Tell me, how can I support you through this? Right? How can I support you right now? Or when someone's giving you this feedback, I know you want to help me, so I'm going to tell you today, this is what I need. Today, I just need you to listen to me. Yes, we want to spew it and get it out. But I think if we can communicate to our partners, to our people that are important to us, they want to help us. This is how you can help me right now. Or I don't know how you can help me right now. I just need to be by myself for a little while. Or please excuse my imperfect behavior right now because I am juggling right now. Like, speak your truth as best you know it.
Letting others around you know what you need or don't need is important because we're not mind readers. We can't know what's going on in Steph's head or Linda's head or anyone else's head.
Even if they really love you, no matter how much they love you, care about you, how long they've known you, they cannot read your mind. Shocking, but true.
These stages of grief and loss, which can come around change, those kind of mechanisms that we have as humans and that we go through when we're managing grief and change, and that it is all normal. Be, easy on yourself to say it's okay.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. And sometimes you don't know what you need, right? And so it's okay. I don't even know what I need right now. And that's okay too. Give yourself grace. But I'll tell you, the one thing you will need is extreme self-care. So put that on the top burner. You have maybe a little bit more time or a little bit more space to do that. You can never go wrong with a little bit more self-care. So make a list of 3, 5, 7, 10 things that you like, that bring you joy, that will help shift you, and put that to the top of your to-do list. And you can tell people, maybe, give me permission to do some self-care or help me with that you can't go wrong.
Beautiful. I'll say let's leave it there, but anything else you want to say before we go, Stephanie Staples?
Even through change, even through loss, we can still live our life unlimited, because what's the alternative, really?
That's right. Well, thanks so much. And for more great ways to live a happier life, or if you're looking for a phenomenal motivational speaker, you need to go to stephaniestaples.ca.
Mindfulness moment.
Do you ever wonder about the deep voice inside of you? Do you listen to it? For why that could be life-changing, we turn to Claire Maisonneuve, a registered clinical counselor with Alpine Counseling Clinic in Vancouver.
One of the things that I like to ask people is, we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about meditation, but have you ever asked yourself, who is the one mindful? Who is the one that is aware of those thoughts that you're having? Because after all, when you're meditating or being mindful, you're aware that you're having, let's say, a negative critical thought about yourself or somebody else. So you're aware of the thought. So who's aware of the thought, right? So this is proof. This is evidence that there is a part of us that is constantly just simply aware of what is going on in our thoughts, feelings, and bodies. This part doesn't do anything. It doesn't react. It is simply observing. And that part is your soul. That part is your higher self. That part is your spirit. And that part has been and will always be unaffected, untouched, and uninjured by anything that has ever happened to you in your life. That part simply observes. If you didn't have that part, then how could you tell me that you woke up this morning and you had a really good night's sleep? Who knows that you had a good night's sleep? Who's the part that knows that you had a bad dream? So what we're doing in meditation is we're learning to live more and more in that place of spirit, in that place of higher consciousness, in that place of equanimity, that place that simply says, oh, look, here's that thought that you're having over and over again about this. Isn't that interesting? So that is the part of us, or maybe it's the core of us, that contains the seeds of joy and happiness and peacefulness and blissfulness that we're all looking for and that we all want. We need to contact that place. And the more I'm silent, the more I am in that space. And the more that part of me could just keep observing what's going on and make me aware of it. So sometimes when I ask that question, people say, oh, you're freaking me out. You're making me feel crazy here. And I'm like, well, I think it's worthwhile asking yourself, because it's proof that you're more than your thoughts. It's proof that you're more than your feelings. It's evidence that there's a higher consciousness inside of you. And why not align yourself with that?
Thanks, Claire. Next time, meditation is not putting you in a coma. You can find Claire at anxietyandstressrelief.com. and head to everythinglifestyle.ca for Meditation with Amanda. Life is challenging, and choosing wellness in our everyday lives may seem like adding to that already long to-do list. But together, we can make it easier. I'm Linda Freeman. Let's connect again soon as together we make the journey of Everything Lifestyle. You've been listening to Everything Lifestyle, an initiative powered by Pattison Media, designed to inspire and motivate a healthy life. For more information on this program, go to everythinglifestyle.ca.
Another Everything Podcast production. Visit everythingpodcast.com, a division of Pattison Media. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast.